When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. If your heart is in your dream, no request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, as dreamers do.
Fate is kind, she brings to those who love the sweet fulfillment of their secret
Like a boat out of the blue, fate steps in and sees you through. When you wish upon a star, your dreams come true.
Hello there. I'm Jiminy Cricket. I'll bet a lot of folks don't believe that about a wish coming true. Well, I didn't either. Of course, I'm just a cricket singing my way from hearth to hearth, but let me tell you what made me change my mind. One night a long time ago, my travels took me to a quaint little village. It was a beautiful night, and the stars were shining like diamonds high above the rooftops. As I wandered along the crooked streets, there wasn't a soul to be seen. The only sign of life was the lighted window in the shop of a woodcarver named Geppetto. So I hopped over to the window and looked in. It was a shame to see a nice, cheerful fire going to waste, so what do? I go in. I look around. Of course, being in a strange place like that, I didn't know what to expect. Cricket can't be too careful, you know. So I ducked behind the coal shovel and peeked out. Well, sir, you never saw such a place. The shop was filled with clocks carved out of wood. Cute little music boxes. And shelves just full of toys. And then something else caught my eye. A puppet. You know, one of those marionette things, all strings and joints. This one was a boy, and a real cute little fellow. Just when I had started to work the strings and play with him, I heard voices. In a jiffy, I made it to a chair and hid where I could look out and watch. Down the stairs came a cat, followed by 2 feet attached to a kindly old gentleman. All he needs is a little more paint and he'll be finished, the old gentleman was telling the cat. Well, I could see he meant the puppet because he started dabbing paint on it and, putting on eyebrows and things. Then he said, "I think he'll be all right, don't you, Figaro?" And the cat sort of nodded, although bothering the old man at Geppetto by making passes at the paintbrush. Pretty soon the puppet was finished, and Geppetto tried to think of a name for him. Finally, he decided, Pinocchio. Pinocchio must be his name. But the cat didn't like it. And Cleo, the pet fish, swimming around the fish bowl, she didn't like it either, shaking her head when Geppetto asked her. Then Geppetto said they'd leave it up to the puppet and slyly pulled the right string so the puppet nodded a great big yes. So, Pinocchio it was. Then Geppetto decided to start up a music box so he could dance with Pinocchio by pulling the strings and pivoting him about.
Music, Professor.
Soon it was time for bed, so Geppetto and Figaro and Cleo left Pinocchio sitting on a workbench. Geppetto told Figaro the little puppet looked almost alive, and before the old woodcarver fell asleep, he looked out at the wishing star and made a wish that his little Pinocchio might be a real boy, never dreaming that... But wait, I'm getting ahead of the story. As for me, I settled down and was just about to sleep when a bright star, the wishing star, came right down out of the sky, making a very bright light. It came right on in through the window and turned into, as I live and breathe, a fairy, a blue fairy. Now this blue fairy went over to where Geppetto was sleeping. "Good Geppetto," she said, "you have given so much happiness to others. You deserve to have your wish come true." Then she said to Pinocchio, "Little puppet made of pine, wake, the gift of life is thine." So Pinocchio, with his strings gone, rubbed his eyes and said, "I can move! I can talk!" Then the fairy told him he was not to be a real boy yet, but that if he proved himself brave, truthful, and unselfish, someday he would be a real boy. It was up to him. He'd have to learn to choose between right and wrong, and his conscience would tell him. About this time, I got in the act, explaining to Pinocchio that a conscience was a still, small voice that people won't listen to. Then he asked the fairy if I was his conscience. She asked me if I'd like to be, and I said, well, So she said, "Kneel, Mr. Cricket. I dub thee Pinocchio's conscience." Then she tapped me on the shoulder with her wand, and there was a brilliant light, and I was Sir Jiminy Cricket, wearing a complete new outfit of the fanciest duds you ever saw. If everything turned out all right, she said, I might even get a solid gold badge. And then she disappeared. After that, Pinocchio and I had a heart-to-heart talk, and Pinocchio said, "I'm going to do right. Attaboy," I said, "and I'm going to help you. Anytime you need me, just whistle." Of course, Pinocchio didn't know how to whistle, so I showed him.
When you get in trouble and you don't know right from wrong, give a little whistle, give a little whistle. When you meet temptation and the urge is very strong, give a little whistle, give a little whistle. Not just a little squeak, pucker up and blow. And if your whistle's weak, yell, "Jiminy Cricket!" Take the straight and narrow path, and if you start to slide, give a little whistle, give a little whistle. And always let your conscience be your guide. if you start to slide, give a little whistle, yoo-hoo, give a little whistle, yoo-hoo, and always let your conscience be your guide.
While we were singing, Pinocchio started dancing on the bench. Just as we finished the song, he danced right off the edge and fell in a heap among the paint pots. The noise woke up Geppetto and Figaro, who came a-running. When they found Pinocchio could move and walk and talk, there was some excitement around there, you can bet. The next day, Geppetto sent Pinocchio off to school. The old gentleman was pretty happy, calling Pinocchio son, and Pinocchio calling him father. How could they know that some old meanies would make a lot of trouble for Pinocchio? A sly fox called Honest John, a bad cat named Gideon, a villain called Stromboli, and a real baddie known as the coachman. Pinocchio met the first two on the way to school. Honest John the Fox told him all about the happy life of actors.
Come on to the theater. Hi diddly-dee, an actor's life for me. A high silk hat and a silver cane, a watch of gold with a diamond chain. Hi diddly-day, an actor's life is gay. It's great to be a celebrity, an actor's life for me. Dum-dee-dee-dee-dum, diddly-up-da-dum-da-dum, dee-dum-dee-dee-dum-da-dum, dee-doo-dee-dee-dee-dum-da-dum, rum-dee-dee-dee-da, diddly-up-diddly-up-da-da, rum-dee-dee-dee-da-da-da, rum-da-da-da-da. Hi, diddly-dum, an actor's life is fun. An actor's life for me. Hi, diddly-dee, an actor's life for me. A waxed mustache and a beaver coat, a pony cart and a billy goat. Hi, diddly-dum, an actor's life is fun. You wear your hair in a pompadour, you ride around in a coach and four, you stop and buy out a candy store. An actor's life for me. Hi, diddly-dee, an actor's life for me. A high silk hat and a silver cane, a watch of gold with a diamond chain. Hi diddly-day, an actor's life is gay. It's great to be a celebrity, an actor's life for me.
In spite of all I could do, Honest John and Gideon got Pinocchio to forget about school and go with them and become an actor. And that's where Pinocchio made his first big mistake. When Pinocchio didn't come home, Geppetto looked everywhere for him, but he just wasn't to be found. In the meantime, Honest John and Gideon, Giddy for short, had taken Pinocchio to meet Stromboli, who ran a puppet show. Stromboli put Pinocchio in the show as the puppet who could talk, who could walk, and move without strings. In the show, Pinocchio would sing this song. You can bet he was a big success. Pinocchio made so much money for Stromboli that Stromboli wouldn't let him go home. You know what that big villain did? When Pinocchio didn't come home, Geppetto looked everywhere for him, but he just wasn't to be found. He threw poor little Pinocchio in a cage and snapped the lock and told the little wooden puppet that from now on the cage would be his home. Pinocchio shook the bars of the cage and yelled, "Let me out of here! Let me out of here!" But it didn't do any good. You can see that Pinocchio was really in a fix. When things looked blackest, the blue fairy appeared again. The only trouble was that when she asked Pinocchio why he hadn't gone to school and how he had gotten into this awful predicament, he made up a lot of lies about being attacked by monsters and a lot of other big whoppers. And each time he told a lie, his wooden nose grew longer. Finally, it stuck way out of the cage. "My nose," he yelled. "Oh, what's happened?" Then the fairy said that perhaps he hadn't been telling the truth. So, with a little encouragement from me, after all I was his conscience, he came clean. And when he promised to be good, the fairy touched her wand to his nose, and it was just like new again. Not only that, the door of the cage opened, and Pinocchio was free. And he and I got out of there fast, and that's no fib. It seems, though, that Pinocchio's adventures were just starting. About this time, Honest John and Giddy had gotten acquainted with a shady character called the coachman who was collecting stupid little boys who played hooky from school. He paid big money, which, of course, interested Honest John right away. The coachman said he took these stupid boys to a place called Pleasure Island, at the mere mention of which even Honest John looked frightened. But when he and Giddy saw Pinocchio returning home from his last adventure, they convinced him he should go on a new one, a vacation on Pleasure Island.
Hi, diddle-dee-dee, it's Pleasure Isle for me, where every day is a holiday and kids have nothing to do but play. Hi, diddle-dee-doo, if what I hear is true, a land of pudding and marmalade is Pleasure Isle for me.
Now, Pleasure Island was reached by coach and then by boat. The coachman took a load of boys there, including Pinocchio and a tough kid named Lampwick. The kids were having a wonderful time. Free cake and candy, ice creams, pie, pickles, all sorts of things, a regular carnival. But there was something fishy about that place. I had managed to jump on the coach at the last minute and go with the boys, and now I decided to get Pinocchio out of there. I found him smoking a big cigar and playing pool with Lampwick. He was beginning to look sick, and I couldn't get him to come away. Of course, I was only his conscience, and Lampwick, he said, was his best friend. Well, okay, that settled it. Go on and laugh, I told him, and make a jackass out of yourself. I'm through. Well, sir, when I tried to leave, I found the coachman and some goons shoving a lot of donkeys down a chute onto a boat. I couldn't figure out where the donkeys all came from. They were being put in crates with their long ears sticking out between the slats. The coachman looked at them. I heard him say something that gave me chills. "You boys," he was saying, looking right at the donkeys, "will bring a nice price." And then he laughed an evil laugh. I couldn't believe what I saw. These were boys turned into jackasses. "You boys have had your fun," the coachman went on, cracking a big whip, "and now you pay for it." So that was it. Now I was upset. I ran back looking for Pinocchio. "Pinocchio, where are you? Quick! We've got to get out of here." When I found him, he had just noticed Lampwick was sprouting donkey's ears and braying. Then right before our eyes, Lampwick got down on all fours and turned into a donkey completely. "Come on, Pinocchio," I shouted. And just then Pinocchio found he had sprouted donkey's ears too. Then a tail popped out. "Come on, quick," I yelled, "before you get any worse." We went over a wall, out on some rocks, and over a cliff into the ocean. Then we managed to get up on dry land and head for home. But when we reached Geppetto's house, it was empty. The bed hadn't been slept in. The furniture, the workbench, even Cleo's fishbowl stand, all covered with cobwebs. Geppetto, Figaro, and Cleo had vanished. While we stood there wondering, a dove flew in and dropped a message. It said Geppetto had gone looking for Pinocchio and had been swallowed by a whale. A whale? Yeah, a whale named Monstro who lived at the bottom of the sea. A whale of a whale who could swallow whole ships alive. At that, Pinocchio started right out to find Geppetto. And of course, there was nothing for me to do but go along. When we got down to the sea, Pinocchio jumped right off the cliff. Well, I knew I might be nothing but live bait down there, but I jumped too. Down there we went under the water among the fishes and clams and things. Now Pinocchio started marching along on the bottom of the sea, calling, "Father, oh Father." I had a terrible time trying to keep up, especially with all those curious fishes following us. Some of them gave us trouble. "Hey, you, let go of my umbrella," I said, "you little squirt." We couldn't get rid of them until I explained we were merely looking for Monstro. Boy, when I said Monstro, those fishes turned tail and disappeared in nothing flat. Next, we were discovered by some seahorses and sea donkeys. They wanted to play, so I rode one of them. "Steady there, Nellie, steady." Well, all this was fine until I asked where we might find Monstro. Then they really left us. Sakes alive, how that sea donkey bucked to get me off his back and swim away to join his pals who had left by the nearest exit. Now, all this time, Geppetto and Figaro and Cleo were inside the whale just about starving to death. They tried fishing, but didn't catch much until Monstro opened his mouth and let a lot of tuna fish in. Then they caught enough to last for weeks. There was part of an old ship inside the whale, and this was where they were. Suddenly, Pinocchio got swept right into the whale's mouth with the fish. He and Geppetto and Figaro and Cleo had a big reunion. But as for me, well, I couldn't get in. The darned old whale closed his mouth, and I was left outside like a bill collector. I yelled at Monstro and rapped on his teeth with my umbrella. "Hey, you! I gotta get in. My pal's in there. Come on, you big moose. Open up." But no soap. He just looked out of those big eyes and stayed put. Inside the whale, Geppetto had discovered Pinocchio's donkey ears and tail. Pinocchio started to explain, but Geppetto said, "Never mind now." Geppetto had his little wooden head. Nothing else mattered. Geppetto had built a raft to get out on, but the whale only opened his mouth when eating, and then everything came in and nothing could get out. Pinocchio had the idea, though. They built a big fire using chairs and barrels and, all kinds of wood, anything they could find. The smoke from the fire made Monstro sneeze, and he sneezed all of them and the raft right out of his mouth. At that, Monstro got mad. With the smoke coming out of his mouth, he took off after the raft. And it looked like Pinocchio and Geppetto and Figaro and Cleo, too, they were done for. That mean old whale dived and came up under the raft, upsetting it and tossing everybody into the water. They got back on, but here he came again. They escaped by jumping overboard just as the whale's tail smashed the raft to bits. Just in the nick of time, Pinocchio hauled Geppetto up on the shore, unconscious. But then the backwash got Pinocchio and he disappeared back into the sea. I was having my troubles too, but by using a bottle as a boat, I managed to get ashore. I looked around and there was Pinocchio lying face down in the surf among the rocks, out like a light. Geppetto came to, and Figaro and Cleo made it, and between all of us, we got Pinocchio home. Well, with Pinocchio lying so still and even Figaro shedding a tear, things were pretty sad. Geppetto was kneeling beside the bed crying and saying, "My boy, my brave little boy." And you can bet I was feeling pretty bad too, even if I was only a conscience. Then all of a sudden, everything got bright and there was the blue fairy. "Awake, Pinocchio, awake," she said. Well, so help me, Pinocchio opened his eyes and there he was, his donkey ears and tail gone, transformed into a real boy. At that, Geppetto said, "This calls for a celebration." So we got a music box going. You should have seen Pinocchio and Geppetto dancing. Figaro, too. She danced, and Cleo swam around in the rhythm in their little fishbowl. As for me, well, that was practically where I came in. I hopped up on the windowsill and looked out at the bright light in the heavens. "Thanks, my lady," I said, taking off my hat. He deserved to be a real boy. Well, you can imagine, suddenly there was a bright, twinkling light right on my coat lapel. And then I was wearing a solid gold badge which read, "Official Conscience." Boy, that was really wonderful.
When your heart is in your dream, no